don't try to satisfy the people or the mob with democratic initiatives. They try to appease the people with what they call bread and circuses. But what, in our experience in America, it's ultra violence and entertainment. And
now the president's being torn apart. I was about to say that as you said it. Incredible. Were you about to say the presidents now are in the gladiatorial ring, though? Now we see them politically torn apart, so we get some petty, yeah, we dealt with that Obama.
Right. So you have, I was thinking of the extrajudicial execution of American citizen in Yemen recently. That's like a gladiatorial, event where Americans get to cheer the assassination of one of their own. Obama essentially goes in front of your point is a good one. He becomes like they throw him to the lions of the banking cartel, and then they destroy him.
So it's like the modern version of the Running Man.
Known passes are required at all times. Display passes properly. All interzone workers with day passes are reminded that curfew begins at midnight. Anyone without a valid zone card after midnight will be permanently detained. Cadre kids, don't forget, October is bonus recruitment month. Earn a double bonus for reporting a family member. ICS, your entertainment and information network, reminds you seeing is believing.
What's the #1 television show in the whole wide world? Yes!
Yes, it's the Running Man. 400 square blocks of danger, structures, demolition.
You guys want to buy a hot stereo?
Your child, happy, loving, caring.
You believe this shit? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Don't listen to it.
I worry about the kids. The network shuts down the schools. The kids are either in hiding or getting basic training. Brainwashed by the TV.
We can jam the network once we find the uplink to the satellite. Then we'll broadcast the truth.
Truth hasn't been very popular lately.
Yeah, I mean, but historically, it's against the backdrop of a collapsing empire, as we saw in Rome, and the American empire is collapsing, and so they resort to this appeasement of the mob with bread and circuses, or violence and amusement. So the violence is getting more gladiatorial and harsh, and the amusement, the pornography and the gambling, and is getting more in your face. So they want.
Okay, I got to stop you there. You were the first person 5-6 years ago, even before I got you on the air, talking about a gulag economy and that you'd be paid to play video games and all these new fake currencies they'd have. And separately, in my research, I knew that once they got us into a cashless society, it wouldn't be about convenience. Just like Google isn't about you learning something, it's about the system knowing what you're into, where you're going, what you're doing. You're allowed to have that service for free because they're building an algorithm on you. Well, it's the same thing with Facebook spying on you, all of this. I've been talking a lot, and this integrates with your research, about how once they get rid of the real economy, and once they bring in the cashless society, Max, that the money, you'll have to pay to have your money in the bank, and you'll have to pay to use your credit card or your debit card. And now we see that happening in Switzerland. Now they're starting that in the U.S. Dozens of new bank fees. Bank of America just took the plunge first. $5 to use your credit card or your debit card. But then you're forced in this modern system into the cashless system. A lot of businesses make you take as payment automatic transfers. And so we now see what a cage this is, this cashless society where they can devalue it and you can't get out from under it, there's so many ramifications. And we're really seeing, as they lay off Bank of America alone, it's over 50,000 now, just the last 30,000 a few weeks ago, 20,000 before that this year. Others are doing it. They're just getting rid of retail banking because they've got the tens of trillions of bailout money. Why should they even have customers anymore? Because they just run the government and steal all our money. Max Kaiser.
Well, yeah, it's indentured servitude. It's a new cyber equivalent of it. People find themselves increasingly more into virtual debt, where they're on websites and gaming websites where they're going to swap the last few dollars that they have for virtual currency, but the interest rate will be real. And in order to pay back the virtual interest rate, they'll have to continue to play the game or click on the ads or participate in some kind of online activity which has only one political view possible. They could create a game where you plug into the game and it's all about killing Iranians, but you have to play because you need to get pay back your virtual debt. Well, by the way, at the other end of the game are real Iranians and they're really getting killed, but we won't, bother you with the details. I saw you something interesting also, Alex, which is that on the casino gulag model, you Google this for the specifics, but a town in America just recently announced that they were getting rid of all their paid firemen and they're going to replace them with prisoners as part of a prisoner release program, and they're going to pay them prison wages. And these will be the new firemen in that town. So this is another trend which we'll see more and more of. All the people that are getting fired, teachers, policemen, the government workers that are being vilified and destroyed, they'll be replaced because you need garbage men, you need teachers, you need policemen, but they'll be replaced from the prison population and making China-like wages, and they'll be plugged.
So this is the new slavery. You called me 6 months ago. I came on one of your myriad of international TV shows, and I didn't even know this till you called me. You said, I want you on about 10+% of Texans having arrest warrants out. And I didn't want to act stupid, so I went, okay, Max, sure. So I went and Googled it, and there was the mainstream news, and our media was proud of it. And the police were proud of it. We have the greatest prison population in the world. 10%, since I checked, it's like 12% now. But pretty soon, that'll be your fireman, that'll be your trash pickup. That's already going on in Texas because you'll end up having 30% of people who are basically in the prisons and the rest of us minding them. And so when you call up to get a pizza delivered, it'll be a guy with an ankle bracelet paying off his debt in a government car or some corporate car. I mean, this is a hellish thing that they are building here.
Well, look at down in Texas and also in Georgia now, a close by state, with the execution of Troy Davis, turning that into a public spectacle to appease the mob, to give them violence and amusement, to appease them, in other words. So the political process is not about voting for stuff that people want. It's about politicians trying to stop the mob from rising up and killing them.
Well, yeah, it's Schwarzenegger with a broom, a prop, Perry with a giant hatchet. I'm going to cut, when he more than doubled the Texas government in 10 years. I mean, it is all about BS. I mean, you could literally use the bathroom in a box, put it in a pretty bow, and the average yuppie would open it up, and you'd say, here's some chocolate. They'd open it up, it would stink, but they would say, but the package says it's candy. They'd get a fork and start eating it. I mean, people have got to wake up. I'm seeing two things happen, Max. Either people are getting more into a trance, or they're getting more and more awake, and these two are really starting to clash. And I see the system trying to bring in more and more tyranny on the backs of this. I'm sure you've seen the article. It's at prisonplanet.com. Also, British papers are reporting it. The VeriSign, the global domain register that the government's given the power to do this, they're saying no judge, no jury, no nothing. Anytime a private group, UN group, government group wants your website taken, no appeal, no nothing. It's just taken extrajudicially, and they're admitting this is the new global kill switch. So I see them also just more and more disappearing information.
Yeah, well, it's just managing that volume of traffic because people are on sites and they're clicking around social networking sites like Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, which now have market valuations of 50, 100, 200 billion dollars, and they're owned in large part by Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. JP Morgan has a big position in Twitter. And so they need to steer that volume of traffic in ways that are consistent with their agenda, which is to impoverish as many people as possible. JP Morgan, of course, is the bank behind the swipe card that is America's food stamp program, what they call it, the EBT, I think it's called, electronic benefit transfer. That is a JP Morgan product. So they got you at the poor end of the scale. And if you have your wealth managed with them, as we know with the Bank of New York scandal, stealing money out of every single transaction, they control $25 trillion in assets. They took 0.3% of every transaction now going back decades. They're hooked in with Morgan and the whole Wall Street crowd, just siphoning money off, high-frequency trading, just siphoning money every single day.
And that's why they're forcing all of us into a government-mandated cashless society, because now they're not just going to siphon little bits here, and they're going to rape us 7 ways to Sunday, and they think they're going to get away with it as long as they shovel UFC and football and public executions at us.
Every movement, every transaction, every interaction, and I think another prediction I made on your show a while ago, which I'm still think will come true, is that the copyright industry is so pernicious and their ability to read emails now is so pervasive that pretty soon at the end of the month you'll get a bill from Microsoft or whomever that'll say, you used this copyrighted word 10 times in your emails last month, you owe us 50 cents.
Oh, yeah, no, actually, they've had companies suing now over message boards and things where people even post a paragraph or a headline.
So, and Facebook is trying to trademark the word face. Twitter is trademarking the word tweet. And now as you use these words, there's a record of it electronically, and you'll be charged for the use of that word. But since you're already broke, and you don't have any money to pay for your right to use those words, guess what? They'll loan you the money. And well,
that was my next point. They now, as you know, have the Department of Education outside of jurisdiction without police force. There is no law. You can go to jail for the debt. SWAT teaming and kicking down doors illegally in California, trying to intimidate people saying, pay your student loans. You've got Bank of America caught taking houses they never even had a deed to that were paid for. I mean, we've just got to wake up and realize what a group of lawless criminals these are. Now, I want to plug some of the interesting things you've got coming up, Clickonomics, Ireland's first economics festival, and other things. But I want to close with this big economic development that's come out. John Major, as you know, the former Prime Minister of England, who actually helped ram through the Maastricht Treaty that brought England without a vote into the euro. And you have that unelected bureaucracy in over 70% of British laws and European laws. Now the private interests are saying, give us tens of trillions or we'll just implode the economy. They're not even saying it's to help the poor anymore. They've just dispensed with that, the super euro, super state forming. They're bemoaning on Bloomberg and CNBC that Germany's too democratic and the Germans don't want to fit the bill for it. Major comes out and shifts and says, I was wrong. I've got his quotes here. This thing's corrupt. It's taken our sovereignty. It's destroyed the city of London. It's all moving to Europe. And we've got to basically get out of the EU. What do you make of this? I mean, these guys, big insiders don't even like what they've set in motion. I'm seeing a lot of panicking and a lot of infighting in the ruling class you don't normally see. Max, what do you make of this?
Well, it's deflation. The banking balance sheets are disintegrating, and the UK is dealing with it with austerity. And this austerity, after 2 years, is causing rioting. London riots, where thousands are out in the streets. The living standards are collapsing, so they're panicking. Same thing all across continental Europe. And Germany is suggesting that maybe it would just opt out of the euro completely. So those old ancient animosities in Europe between the UK, Germany, France, all over Europe are resurfacing as the euro falls apart due to the banking system collapse. That was a foregone conclusion because it was entirely built on faulty assumptions to begin with, thanks to the false accounting fraud that was perpetrated by groups like Goldman Sachs, who famously hid billions in Greek debt.
So as this goes cattywampus, as it goes foobar, the banksters are in a pickle of their own making. What do you make of Major coming out and saying England needs to get out? I mean, if England leaves, won't that really trigger the implosion of Europe? And then the banksters won't get this new superstate on top of it. What then happens? Where does the contagion move?
It is disintegrating, but they will get their pan-European bond market, their federalization of the Eurozone, because they're going to play the panic card. And people are losing their jobs and they're panic-stricken. And they're using the disaster capitalism model. They'll usher in this new layer of bureaucracy, the new taxes, a new Euro central bank facility. They already talked, remember Davos last year or the year before. It was big news because they openly suggested that what the world needs is a fresh $100 trillion credit line. And that's ultimately what the U.S. and Europe are going to put together. A brand new $100 trillion credit line.
And the Republicans have Herman Cain saying we'll have a new sales tax paid directly to the Federal Reserve. And conservatives are like, yeah, gang rape me. I mean, these people are pathetic.
He's a former Kansas City central banker.
But why are mainline conservatives so into getting gang raped? I mean, why do they love getting conned? Just like the central bankers that robbed everybody are demanding trillions in